Welcome to episode 122 of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie. Joining me this week, a man who was just so close. He went 29 rounds with some assistance. He drew null after null after null after null and kept getting back up again. He's a man who nearly pulled the amDirt crew over the line, but he couldn't. But I think for this week, he will be crowned the amDirt MVP. Gaz, say hi, Gaz. Oh, hail, Gaz, actually.
Ooh, hail. No, hi, Gaz. Yes, almost. And I don't know, for those who haven't seen the playthrough, it came down to the wire. Hopefully this isn't spoilers if you haven't watched it, but I suppose it dropped a while ago. But yeah, I don't know what it would have been more fitting if that had been the crit that I needed or if it had been a null. Right? Like, finishing it off, that's the story, right? Like,
let's just very quickly cover that last AMD flip. I would have preferred it to be the null or the crit and nothing in between. Just
yeah, totally. A zero is boring, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good fun, and fortunately, as soon as it finished and I was driving home, I was replaying in my head all of the things I could have done differently, and haven't done the math on it, but I'm pretty sure that I probably could have got a lot closer. As in, I could have been not relying on a crit flip. It might have been relying on like a +1 to do enough damage. But you know what? You live and you learn, and now we all have to suffer.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do mention that in scenarios like that, yes, you can look at that little, number crunch and decision-making process, but it's all the little tiny things along the way, right, that lead up to that particular point.
Like Phil not going to kill the cultist and instead getting the chest. Is that one of those points?
Yeah, look, it may get mentioned. We love you, Phil. It may get mentioned in the recap. But look, there was definitely others before then, okay, that didn't involve Phil and also did involve Phil, but also involved me and lots of me as well.
I mean, and that's the thing. We've talked about it, that 29 rounds, there are so many decisions and so much going on that it really isn't down to one flip, one even multiple bad RNGs from a monster ability. There's a whole bunch of different decisions going into that code. So and that's what makes it so cool. It's that, it would be easier to be like, oh, we got screwed by the game, we couldn't win that, it's the game's fault.
Yeah.
But I think it's way more constructive, and also it makes the game more interesting because you can kind of get super jaded if all you're thinking about is like, oh, we can win sometimes, but sometimes the game just says no, right? And from someone who draws their null consistently at critical moments, trust me, I can see how I could very easily get jaded. But I think it's good that we can go, no, you know what? We just got to be better. Like, got to be better and mitigate that RNG somehow, and we'll get there. So I think it's great.
That's a really good point, and I think that the chaos that come with the Haven series, with the whole RNG thing, another beloved game out there, Spirit Island, that a lot of people love, and they talk about, they froth over, they strategize around. I love that game, right? But there's very little RNG in there apart from an event deck, which was an actual added addition from an expansion. So the original game didn't even have one of those. So having a very deterministic game is its own level of excitement and its own level of fun. But the fact that there's enough RNG in this, we had scenario 22 from Frosthaven that absolutely screwed us RNG wise, right? It's rare, but it can happen. This was definitely one of the, and we definitely made a lot of mistakes, but it was definitely one of the ones where RNG was just tipped a little bit against us. And look, Peregrine may come back. Peregrine's our stats man. He may come back and say, look, the stats were fairly even. Yes, you guys, had some crucial nulls missed, but you also got lucky with a couple of things, and we don't always remember those bits. Right, so this is why numbers are going to be really fascinating when they get released.
And I mean, part of our positive RNG is the fact that Phil crits 4 to 5 times a session and always draws his green cards. So maybe we're never actually screwed, right? Like, exactly, we've become accustomed to Phil only drawing positive with his AMD, and then we take that as the baseline. Whereas that if he actually drew from what his averages should be, then maybe we would actually be on the negative side of the RNG. So yeah, I think it all just comes into play.
just to counter that, from recent memory, in that particular scenario, he drew well a lot of the times, a lot of green cards. But I don't know if it's just my recency bias, but I feel like a lot of those really good draws are on things that have 1 health. Right. And then, so he crits it dies, it was dead to begin with. But there was a couple, and I'm thinking of that Skelly in the corridor where we just needed him to nail it. And it was the first time, his first null. It just happened to be his first null for the campaign, right on a crucial target, which had, a rolling effect, etc. But yeah, that's what I mean by the RNG against us just happens to, it feels like it screws us more than it blesses us.
Yeah, and I mean the real concern with that is that if Phil's going to start drawing nulls at critical moments, I mean, what's even the point of me being around, right?
Why are we playing? Why are we doing this?
Well, what do you need another guy who's drawing nulls at critical times? Like, if he's going to be the crit guy and the null at critical times guy, I mean, that's basically my role.
Our party's actually kind of crap when you put it that way, because my special power is not either of those things. I have a nice balance between, in fact, my crits, I'm critting more than I'm missing. My power is that I always take the green cards and the crit cards from the monsters, right? So I don't know what the stats would look like there, but I feel like I'm always copying like all of the positives from the enemies, and it's implicating in that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to get all the curses and the misses nulls out of the enemy AMD by forcing them to attack each other. So, I mean, that's all that's left is the green cards, right?
Yeah, that's true. No, that's well said. Our agenda for this episode is we'll do a short Dirtbag mail segment. All right. It's mostly one topic centered around there, and we won't harp too on about it because it was something that we talked about last week. We'll be recapping scenario 4, Crypt of the Damned. That will not be the first time I say that. We will be covering our amDirt Diaries, and then we're going to bring back the Monster Spotlight, and we'll be covering Cultists and Living Bones.
Perfect.
So, Dirt Sheet, all right. Hail unboxing just came out, so I just released it. It was actually last night, but when you hear this, it'll actually be last week, which is pretty cool. And I think probably like people are just they're enjoying that and they're seeing that out, and I'm just seeing some of the comments that are coming through regarding that. And one of the ones that was sticking with me is that you made a comment during it about hand limit and how she's a 9 hand limit class, and the minute you throw persistence in there, she becomes an 8. It's really an 8 hand limit class. And people are like, oh, that's not really fair on, that you can't look at it that way, because with hand limits like Mind Thief, for example, and I wasn't really, sure where this was going. And then I realized, Mind Thief and all that, they're persistence that go at, that's part of, the character. But unlike other persistence like potatoes, they can come back. And therefore it's not really a 9, hand limit class. Does that change your opinion on calling them, like, actually an 8 hand limit class or something like that, along with the Mind Thief?
Oh, like I think on the Mind Thief, I think it's done really well that, yeah, they are cards, they come back. They're not burns, right? This is, I guess the difference is if it's a persistent or persistence, right?
Well, like Crushing Weight and the Drifter ones, which are burns, ultimately. It's just, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think the idea is it's really easy to see the number of, say, 9 or 10. So, Hale's got 9, the Mind Thief has 10 cards, and go, okay, cool. So you've got a 10 card limit, and then you, without knowing the cards, because every character works different, blah, 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 right? It's not a blanket statement, but I think that it's good to just acknowledge if it's a character that's very based around having a persistent out, even if it's not a loss, you are mostly playing with that amount of cards, right? Now, I know you can plan to play one every cycle, so it's not as bad as, say, the Drifter, in that sense where you're putting out a card, or there's other classes from Frosthaven, and I'm sure there's some in GLOOMHAVEN 2nd edition, where you're putting it out and it just doesn't come back. So you are actually got, what, the Drifter's 12 cards, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the Drifter, even if you only play Crushing Weight, because that's literally all you need, right? Is you are playing essentially at 11 cards, and probably 10 because you'd maybe throw out one of the other subpar non-Crushing Weight style enhancements. That probably truly is a lot more of what I was talking about being, that's an 11 card limit because you're playing it on the first turn or very early, and then you are playing the rest of your scenario with 11. With the Mind Thief and Hail as well, because they're not burn persistence, is that I'm playing with 10 cards when I start, and I play one of them, which is an augment, which sits out there, but I can pull that back by the end of the rest. And when I rest and I go down to 9, now I'm playing with 9. And so I am. It is probably more true to, yeah, that's the number is the number. So yeah, I'd agree with people saying that's not really fair if the persistent can come back to hand.
Mm,
But I think with I was probably maybe blanketing all those classes.
correct. I
That
get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's others that are like I don't know if I can. I don't want to say spoilers, but there's others that have those core persistents that aren't. They don't come back.
Yeah,
That
you've
are
got
like
the classes
pretty.
that have the design is to cycle the persistence, whereas you've got others where you set and forget this persistence. So the Drifter ultimately is a 12 card class, and it's even got I think a mastery around completing 4 of those, like having the token on the last spot of 4 of your persistent cards. So the minute you put them out, it dramatically starts to reduce your hand size, and then but because you're placing them and choosing which persistence go out, you're determining your hand size ultimately. But you are going to have a fixed hand size, whereas I guess with the others, it's still part of the hand size throughout. So it all comes down to the burn icon versus not the burn icon.
Yeah, that's probably the better way of looking at it. I think for burn icon classes, persistence or summons as well is another thing to look at, and that's I guess the Bone Shaper compared to other summon classes that don't get their summons back, right? Is again a different because I don't know how many cards the Bone Shaper has, but if it has 10, say, we probably should know this, but whatever. It's not losing cards due to playing summons. It might because it's a bit different in that they stay out and you can't, well, you can recall them, but then you're wasting because you summon it and that's all it does. Whereas at the Mind Thief, you play the augment and you get to get an ability, a passive ability, but also get to do an attack. So you're getting still keeping momentum. But yeah. Anyway, without reading the actual comments, I'd agree. I probably was off in saying that it's like a 8 hand limit character because you do cycle the persistence. So
Yeah. Once I edited that video of the Halo unboxing and actually got the card scans up there and all of that, I got to watch it as a viewer, and I think that like my initial when we unbox something, it's all raw, right? It's all and because we've just played a session as well, our brains may have been slightly fatigued at the time. But looking at it freshly, and this is just talking from my own point of view, I was looking at it going, oh, you know what, this actually seems rather interesting, and I think she's got a really, really fun looking kit. The irritation things looks really interesting. And actually am, more inclined to have a look at her and play her if that was something that, I'm not against playing her, which I think at the time I was just a little bit like, but with just, met her, we just, had the voice situation and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that she's got a very interesting kit. And I'd like to actually see her played in one way or another.
yeah, I'm the same actually. Like, I think she looks really cool to play around with, and I was very interested in how. And I think we talked about this in the unboxing. I have to rewatch it because it was a couple of weeks ago. But how her resource generation versus spending works, because I think again we might have mentioned this in the unboxing. There was this instant fear that it was just going to be a play card get resource, play card spend resource, and fell into that kind of cookie cutter space that a couple other classes have put into before. But it's way different to that, which is really cool. And it is still generate spend, but it's interesting about the puzzle about how you generate and how you spend. So yeah, I agree. I think I'd really enjoy playing her as well, and I painted the mini, so I'd love to move her around. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Side note to that though, right? I don't know the best way to introduce her into the campaign of optional characters because we are playing through second edition and we want to see as many of the second edition characters as possible.
I especially do.
Like, yeah,
from
so
like a memory.
Well, and I know you haven't seen a bunch of them anyway, so that's even more. And I feel it's probably the same because he only played a small amount of Gloomhaven. So I want to see those characters out, and I don't know if I want to see the mercenary classes over those characters,
Yeah.
even though they are also very cool. It's kind of like playing a game and playing the expansion without the base game, and then you don't get to play the base game in that sense. We're going to miss out on some characters. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting and way of figuring out how we do all that. So,
Yeah, well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. If you've been following our playthrough, we will be unboxing the rest of the mercs, but only when certain requirements are met, which was put together from the amDirt Council. And by amDirt Council, I mean Pete, because he's the only one who put suggestions forward and no one objected. So as far as I'm concerned, Pete is running amDirt now.
it was funny actually when I posted the painted Hail Mini on the Reddit and the Frosthaven Discord outpost area, people were obviously referring because they've seen all of them, and I'm not talking from a like, hey, here's the channel perspective. It's just like, hey, I painted this thing, and people were talking about the other sculpts, and I was like, oh, this I've actually found this sculpt really cool, and it was really fun to paint, and I think that it was like a really well done sculpt. Oh, I haven't seen the others, and I think it was probably weird for people like, well, like what? Just look at them, right?
Yeah.
You got the pack. You didn't just buy the Hail pack, right? Like you got all of them. Clearly, you have the other sculpts. And I don't think anyone made any comments on it, but I was just like, yeah, I hope they're all this good quality. And I feel that there's some people that read it go like,
how did you not check? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, just look.
Use your eyes.
So,
but Hale's unlock requirement was set that it was really straightforward. Actually, it was basically when we meet her. And I'll be honest, like I didn't expect to meet her by scenario 3, as evident by when she popped up in the scenario. So that was interesting. There's a Nafi. Now I think it's pronounced a Nafi. The requirements for us is when the Mine Thief retires. So that's all based on you.
Okay. All right.
And I just want to say these suggestions also were based thematically around the characters, right? So I don't know if there's a connection there or whether or not maybe it's a connection to Gaz. Maybe her name is like Gaz or something like that.
This is a lot. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Satha is whenever we meet an NPC from Frosthaven, which in my head I was just like, was that just a stab? Like just because thematically it's on point. But then, I mean, if we meet someone from Frosthaven, that would be pretty cool.
It would be. And that'll raise the stakes for when that happens. And hopefully we realize it during the event. It'll be like, oh, and like maybe we can just Photoshop her in to the event. So it's like, the guy from, I don't know, what's Captain Doggery do or whatever is the...
Captain Doghogger is a different dude to Captain Olmsted.
No, but I'm saying like Captain, like if Captain of the ship comes from Frosthaven, it's like, oh, hey, I'm from Frosthaven, blah, blah, blah. We'd be like, oh, and the mayor, Sath is there as well. Like we'll just put her in there that like it makes sense. We're like, oh, now we have to unbox it.
I was going to say, what if it's Bumpy?
Oh, I mean, that's the MVP. Bumpy or Ormy, right?
Well, Bumpy single-handedly retired the Drifters, right? So, like, there's already some status there. But, yeah, my fear is that someone will come in and we'll just be like, oh, cool. And we just don't realize because we're us.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and Cassandra requires that we make a bold prediction when it comes true if triggered. And I was like, that's a weird one, Pete. Why would you do that? But that's because Cassandra is the one that's modeled after the Diviner. Divination and all that. So I was like, oh, that actually makes sense. And I was like, getting you and I to make bold predictions about stuff, I don't know how that's going to work. I've put together a one, you can let me know if you agree or not. It's the next time we win a scenario and Gaz doesn't draw his null and draws at least one crit, we unlock Cassandra.
I mean, I just feel like we actually want to unbox her at some point in our lives.
Yeah, but there's a chance that it could be next week.
Could be. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I like that kind of idea of having some threshold that we meet. I guess the other thing we could do to expand on the suggestion of us predicting something is maybe collectively the community could throw up suggestions on things for us to predict, right? So like, all right, predict when this will happen or what this will happen or something like that so that there is and then we have to make our prediction. So it gives us almost a topic. With obviously spoilers, but you know what I mean? Something like that. And then we could make predictions within those categories. And then if they come true, then we can do it.
Okay.
Because you're right. Like make a prediction is pretty broad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's why I was like, mine's not really a prediction. It's just more of a impossible feat, really. And I just figured, when that's met, but it's not out of the realm of impossibility. Like I said, it could be any week. What I like about it also, and Peter actually made reference to it, it was that it means that even if a scenario is 1, right? We still, like, if you're hitting stuff on the way to the escape tile, you know, it means every AMD flip's like, oh, is this for Cassandra, right?
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, look, I'm happy to carry the weight of that unboxing on my shoulders.
Yeah, good.
And I mean, it gives everyone this kind of sub-objective to observe as they go through the playthrough. Like everyone just having the back of their mind, like looking like if I draw that crit in the first couple of like rounds, it's gonna be like, oh, Cassandra unboxing, it's on, right? It's online.
But
And
oh,
then
you
and
may
then
not want to.
later
You may not want to draw another card for the rest of the scenario, which could be really bad.
it could be really bad for the success of the scenario, considering all of my cards make them attack.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I feel like it does put a bit on the line, but yeah, I'm happy to run with that unless we have some other predictions we can stack on top of it. So,
yeah.
I mean, the other flip side of that could be we go through a scenario where Phil draws his null and doesn't draw his crit. I feel like that's probably more impossible than mine.
Oh, they're both equally hard, guys. How about?
Well, I've drawn my miss and my crit in the same session before. I don't think he has ever drawn his miss and not drawn his crit.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll keep plotting that one. Unless by next week, you know, if we come up with a better idea, but next week, you know, you meet these requirements, we'll just unbox it. Dirtbag. Last week we were talking about the teleportation pad situation. It wasn't the topic, but it seemed to be the highlight because people were saying to me that, and I've got comments from Dwarf74, Mexican Superman, and Bob the Mule collectively talking about how they don't believe that, you know, almost like I'm being naturally a bit hard on myself and saying, oh, it's not really cheesing, don't think of it that way, etc., and all of that. Probably, I mean, I respect the comments, I really do, and that I shouldn't look at it as cheesing, but it's hard for me to agree that it's not. And I think probably a lot of it is coming from the fact that we catch up once a week. We catch up once a week to play a session. And then, of course, we have to record that session and then create a podcast episode around that session. And I feel like sometimes that impacts the way I feel around whether or not it's cheesing. So if we go from playing several 20 plus round scenarios in a row and then we play a 10-1 because of something like this and it ends early, right? Or it becomes solved in a way, it kind of removes that, I don't know, nail biting. And they don't all need to be nail biting, but do you sort of see where I'm coming from in that it changes it from that point of view? It just leaves a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, or I don't know what it is, but it's definitely on that kind of level.
But I agree, and I understand that because we had a few scenarios we used to in the Frosthaven we used to refer to as the Phil timer, right? It's like we got to play this scenario until Phil on his blink blade decided that he just would end the scenario, and
So
unfortunately,
Phil's our cheese.
yeah, Phil was that cheese, yeah. So like I agree, and from your perspective, it's not so much about whether it's cheesing or not, but it's just more about like, oh, I found a way to end this scenario now, which means nobody gets to play anymore. But our objective is to end the scenario, so please do it because that's what we're aiming for. And yeah, it can end up in a bad spot. And when I think what makes that even more, and I don't want to say cheese adjacent, it's probably not cheese using the teleportation pad to end it, but it's definitely still dairy, right? Like it's in that space. It's one of those things where you go, we've kind of skipped part of the scenario by doing that.
I think that's my biggest point, is that if it's skipping a main mechanic within the scenario and you get to ignore that, but it's also, don't forget, it's tied to one character. So therefore, not every party is going to be able to do that. So, you know, like what I love about the Haven series is that you've got a big, colorful cast of characters, all with different ways of doing the same thing, right? Really interesting ways of performing attacks, performing conditions like stuns and poisons and all that kind of stuff. A lot of characters have access to those things. Therefore, you have different compositions, you have different combos, different synergies, etc. Everyone's got their own shtick, their own puzzle. That's what I love about the game. All right. It's more that cards like Teleportation Pad are so unique, right, in what it does. And people may come at me and say, look, there are other characters that you haven't seen or that you've forgotten about that also, you know, can do that. Well, I mean, I'd put them in the same bucket then, right? But it just ignores a key mechanic in the game. So the most recent scenario we did, the key mechanic in my way would obviously be keeping Hale alive through all of the different threats and the stamina puzzle, right, of how long you've got to go while doing all of that kind of stuff. This card single-handedly ignores that whole aspect of it.
Well,
And I
yeah, the
think,
second half of the rooms.
yeah, and that's pretty much my only thing is that name another card in the game that's going to do that. You may be able to, but there's not many, which is why they're all going to go into this category of if we win because of that, it's going to feel bad, you know?
Yeah. And I think that we've had other examples that I think, because they were raised in the comments as well about some other cards with other classes. So there's a card that I don't know how spoilers. One of the characters in Frosthaven basically can give all allies movement and jump, right?
Yeah.
And there was one particular scenario we did where I think we had to move carts, like carts or cars or something like that. We're moving along some tracks, and the
Oh,
whole
yes.
puzzle with that is that they move from one side of the map to the other side, and there's monsters in the way that target them. So you've got to get in the way and do all that stuff. When you're granting all allies on the map an additional move with jump, it negated a massive component of what that puzzle was. So was it cheesy? No, right? Like, it didn't mean that we just didn't have to do the scenario, but it definitely made it substantially easier, way easier than like, oh, I've got to stun everything on the map so nothing gets to go. It was more, and because it was repeatable, right? It was like, well, I can just keep doing this, and that's where that we won't go back into the topic of what is cheese, what's not, but it just feels bad because you're like, I'm going to keep doing this one thing that's going to super accelerate the end of the session, and then nobody gets to play. And that's really it. If we were catching up 3 times a week, or we were doing big weekend sessions or even whole day sessions where we're smashing out 2 or 3 scenarios, you don't feel as bad because we just pack up, go back to Gloomhaven, do our next scenario, and we're like, haha. At the end of the day, we're like, oh yeah, we got through 3. The first one was a bit quick, but the others were whatever. But you're right. When we're playing once a week and we do have those things, it does. Yeah,
It's
yeah. I
definitely
100% understand what you're saying. But I also understand what everyone else is saying. Is like, it's part of the
totally.
game. It's a character. It's a
Absolutely.
class. It's a
It's
a card you've
personalized. It's
chosen. Yeah,
honestly a personalized thing. It's just the way I feel because in those exact situations you feel, other groups will be with that cart scenario. Other people are going to be like, "No, that was such a great moment. It was such a great moment that we effortlessly got to finish a particular scenario." Like, I'm just going to throw out a very, very niche kind of example, but imagine having a boss whose whole mechanic is based around heaps and heaps of poison, right? It's just got heaps of poison, and you've got a character in your group called the Cleanser. You just happen to bring one in called the Cleanser, who's got a level 3 ability card. It's a permanent persistent. All allies can't be poisoned, right? It literally, like, winning that scenario just literally removes the biggest threat. And I think that the way I would feel if that was the case would just be, oh, well, that scenario is really meh, right? Now, it's not from a design point of view, but my experience playing that felt meh because I didn't get to experience it properly. And it's a weird problem to have, right? It's a weird personal, head thing going on where it's like, well, don't play it, don't use it, but I have it. Like, if I don't, that's stupid, right? It's bloody dumb. Another example I want to give is I can remember a couple of times in Frosthaven, right, where we play escape scenarios, right? And where everyone has to get survive and get to the escape hex, So we're at the last door, we open, the last room, etc. And there's a room full of lurkers, harrowers, Captain Olmsted, things like that. And, we lay the teleportation pad down, the group moves 10, we win.
yeah,
So, the scenario 71, you didn't play it. This is my last example. Scenario 71 is, it was this weird one where Phil and I duoed it because you weren't there, and it was part of the chain.
swinging off the the mast one, and you had to get I remember seeing it. Yeah.
And there's a bit right at the end where you get to the artificer and he's got to escape. There are threads on Reddit, right, on BGG about Scenario 71. How the hell are you supposed to do this? This is stupid. There are piranha pigs right near where you need to get the artificer to that spawn 2 per round. It's really difficult. This is BS, etc. And then you've got a subgroup of people who come in going, oh, we had that card. We had the move 2 and jump. So, lol, we didn't really, notice it. But the drastic difference between those two groups because of one card, that's what I mean, right? It's just when things are that game-changing that they ignore the scenario, it can sometimes feel or make me feel bad because I didn't get to appreciate it maybe the way that a regular group may have.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a valid thing, and I think this will come up again with cards like that. And anytime a character has a game altering, because that's one of those things where the rules say you can move for X amount of hexes, and your cards are you're limited to your movement by your cards. You've got a card that basically says we're going to bend slash break that rule because I can create instances where people can move way further without the need of bringing cards specifically to allow them to do that. Like we can make them move past hazards and monsters and etc. without the need for jump and stuff. So it is breaking some of the rules, which is fine because those are the most interesting cards, right?
Right.
Here's your rule. Here's a card that allows you to bend and or break that. It's just in instances where that means you finish the scenario. That's where that starts to be a bit weird. If it's like the start, right? Like, oh, we cheesed our way through the first room, but then we had to fight our way through the back half. You wouldn't almost feel as bad. You'd be like, oh, I used one of my tools to get past this hazard, and then we had to fight our way through the rest of the scenario as per normal. But when you flip it around the other way, it suddenly becomes this weird thing of like, oh, because it ended, it feels bad. But yeah, it is what it is. And I think we're going to see it be abused more. And I'm sure others are going to get characters and classes and abilities and items that do the same thing. And we'll probably bring it up again, and everyone will tell us that it's not.
Yeah. Cheesecake. We will bring it back.
Cheesecake.
All right, let us move along to scenario 4. We had 2 very, very interesting events this week. Further, really just applause to Satire, Alexander, and your team for not only the writing, but just the decision making in, giving us, now that we're doing a voting system, with our little dry erase boards and all of that, it's really showing. It's very rare that we're all going to line up with the same decision. And also the reputation systems playing a role in that, and just the overall outcomes are fascinating. So I think it was City Event 15. I didn't. Oh yeah, go for it.
I was just jumping really quickly to add on to the writing. I think one of the things I've noticed that's difference as well when we have an A or B type decision was with Frosthaven, it felt a little bit sometimes like it would be, hey, you see a beggar on the side of the road. Do you rob him or do you just move on with your life? And so it became this, do you just act like a normal person and gain nothing or do you want to steal his shit, right? Whereas they seem to have gone more extreme with the differences. So it actually feels like you're making a decision. Like, do you want to, again, we use the same example, do you want to like rob him or do you want to give him something? So it's like, oh, well, there's obviously a positive and a negative to both of these. I don't know what they are, but now at least I know I'm committing to something. Whereas I felt some of the previous, and not all of them, I'm probably blanket statement in this, but it felt a little bit like an interesting decision or do nothing.
Yep.
And I think when that's the case, it always feels bad to do the do nothing thing because you're like, well, there's a chance that it just says, oh, you just ignore them and move on. In which case you're like, oh, it's not even that we didn't get anything. It's that we didn't even really get an event. But this is like, kill the dude or like help him. And you're like, whoa, okay. I mean, this is Mother Teresa and Hitler options here, right? But at the end of the day, we're having to commit to a path. And I actually think that's really interesting. It's way more interesting from a role play perspective as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, again, hats off so far for what we've seen. They've done a great job with that.
So we had the City Event 15, University Campus or something like that was on fire. I can't remember what it was. I have not written any of this up because it was very long, this one. But ultimately, building on fire and, what are we going to do about it? And you see, you see a lady and a strong man and, you basically have to assign your party members as well as these 2 NPCs to 3 different jobs during this fire. One of them being evacuate people out of the building, another being herding people outside to safety, and 3 putting out the fire, right? A, B, and C. And, the fact that there was a third option in there, but also we chose not to vote for this one because it didn't feel like a voting one. It felt like one that we could coordinate, which already was cool because it's, different to actually sit there and go, hey, there's a bit of a riddle / puzzle / something here that we need to collectively put our heads together and get a feeling that we're going to go with. And, they even had the descriptions of, the dude looked strong. They didn't mention he looked chaotic, but they said he looked strong, which was pretty cool. And she she looks nimble and or resourceful or something like that. Yeah. So we knew that the traits were going to come into it. It was just how they were going to use the traits for the different roles. And then when we flipped the card over, it actually was like, there's way too much text here, just go to the section book. So this is the second time we've had this. And we knew it was going to be spicy the second it happened. So Gaz, you were reading this out, and it was like, depending on where we assigned everyone to, various locations, and it was reading them individually, starting off with the fire putting out thing. And then it would literally be like, for all of these traits, for the people assigned to this role, add 1 point, and then -1 for chaotic for some reason, because chaotic is bad apparently. And it's the first time that, well, you've talked about this, how the trait words are also showing a negative, which is interesting. Yeah. And then, that adds to a score. We move on to the next part. If we fail that, move on to the next part. And I think we get individually tiered rewards or individual punishments for depending on, which ones failed and which ones succeeded. And ultimately, we failed all three.
We did, yeah. And I think that this kind of event occasionally spread through, right, is incredible for a different experience. It does take way longer. I know one of the complaints with Frosthaven in general is the outpost phase drags on. So I don't think you want to do events like this every time, because I think that at that point it just becomes this additional admin people don't want to do. But it was cool. I thought the writing was good and the decision making was good. I think the only thing that I think could have been done better, and I actually think a couple of people mentioned this in their comments or our Discord, maybe Stu, I could be calling you out incorrectly, but sorry if I am, is a little bit more signposting, because it's very difficult, right? And we don't care about spoilers, right? Because people wouldn't be listening. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So the thresholds for each of them were quite high. They were like 2 or 3, or like above 2. So I think you needed to hit 3
greater
on.
Than, yeah.
So with that, when you have, we had 3 people and we got 2 NPCs, so we have 5 bodies to assign, right? If you're trying to hit thresholds of 3, and assuming each person contributes 1, you need at least 3 people probably to be able to be successful with one of these. And we spread ourselves out, right, of what, 2-1-2, I think it was, which meant that I still don't think that we would have succeeded even if Phil didn't have chaotic. I think we still land on the right one. But yeah, it just became a little bit more like either lower the threshold, but then everyone can succeed and everything, because you don't want people to do everything, but maybe signpost it a little bit to like, hey, it looks like each of these tasks individually are going to be quite tricky. You might have to work together and pick one and forget about the others. But there wasn't much of that, because we tried to be like, we'll be able to accomplish something. Maybe there's a tier reward, right? Like, oh, we'll put out the fire. And because even though we didn't succeed, we got 1 success. Therefore, we put out a little bit of it, but half of it burnt down, and everyone says high 5, gain 1 reputation or something, right? Or here, have 5 gold. But you know what I mean? There was nothing to really say you're going to need to probably group together, because if you don't, you're going to fail all of it.
Well, don't forget, the signposting would have been good, because the very first one covered was actually getting people like out of the building. And that one impacted, because that minus the required score of the consecutive ones. So by completing that, it actually made the other ones easier. But we had no way of knowing that other than realism. So, like, maybe.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, I don't know. And it potentially sets this... Oh, I think I froze.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm back. It potentially sets this bad precedent that... if we had another one, right, where we have multiple options and we're assigning ourselves to different tasks, we're now naturally going to go, well, we need to group together. Okay. And then if that one there is more of a, well, hey, you did achieve this, but you didn't send anyone to that, and so now the gate fell down and you're getting invaded, we're going to be like, like that just feels bad at that point. Yeah, basically. So I don't want to say that it needs, Alexander and his team are way obviously more experienced and better at writing these things for me. But just from my experience, it felt not cheated, but a little bit like, a little bit of a subtle hint. And I don't want to be told what to do, would be cool, but as long as they're consistent.
Yeah, okay.
But that's fair. But either way, A+ on this one. And I'm really looking forward to the equivalent of the demon coming back from Frosthaven, because that's my all-time favorite event. Like, hands down favorite event.
Well, that would count as a Frosthaven character returning.
Yes, it would be. It would be. So
All right, let's quickly get through road event 3. So we head down the road towards our scenario for the day when a quattrel named Gaz with 2 Zs tells us to halt, otherwise we'll die from his aura of unluckiness. We pause for a moment before bursting into laughter. And the Silent Knife says, "You think you're unlucky. Mate, step aside." Gaz with 2 Zs doesn't enjoy being made fun of and illustrates this by revealing a suit made of pillows. Whilst doing so, falls right onto his nose, which causes minor bleeding, and this is all the validation Gaz with 2 Zs needs. He passes out for some reason, and the Tinkerer gives him a slurp from his pot, which gets an angry look from Silent Knife. Gaz with 2 Zs begins to explain once again how unlucky he is, and during the insufferable moaning, the party have to decide to either assure him we're here to help or to straight up murder him. For him. The party votes. It's a 2-1 in favor of the not murdering option. He presents us the source of his unluckiness and invites us to siphon off pieces of unluckiness from him. Each character will start the next scenario with curse, and then we check a box below. We may collectively remove any number of bless cards to check additional boxes, and then finally one character may gain an additional curse to check another box. And I think I did this, I read this out. Might have misread it slightly because it did say every character starts the next scenario with curse, which for some reason I then counted as box checking. So it's not. So the old criteria was you check a box below, so that's 1. Then you may collectively remove any number of blessed cards to check additional boxes, which we took 2 from you, which gave us another 2, and then I took the extra 1. So really we're 4 out of 8 because there are 8 check boxes.
yeah.
When we reach the 3rd check mark, he gives us his gift, which was his eyeball. It sounds really weird on repeat, but he gave us an item. It was an item called Lucky Eye, which gave it to Gaz. It was a bag item that during your turn you can perform a strengthened targeting all within range 1. And finally, that event goes back in the deck, and hopefully we choose the non-murder option again.
Yeah, and it's really lucky that now knowing the correct amount of boxes to tick that we did do 4, because now we need to make sure we do 4 the next time it comes back up so we can actually win it. So that just means that someone in the party needs to bless every single time to make sure in case we run into old luck guy.
Yes, Gaz with 2 Zs.
Yeah.
Good event. I'm really excited to actually see the outcome of this, because if you don't bring blesses, because a lot of people aren't necessarily going to be spending a lot of money on blesses, maybe even early in the game, there's a chance that this takes a while to finish. And every time it has to cycle, you have to shuffle the event deck again. It's going to come back quite rare. This final prize or final reveal, it's one of those hyped up, can't wait for him to return. Hopefully it's a good payoff and not 3 morale and 2 axe nuts.
Yeah, it is, and I think, like I was saying earlier, the options between either like help him or murder him, right, and within reason, help him out and tell him he's not that unlucky, or murder him because you got to put him out of his misery. Again, are very good and extreme options that they didn't water it down. It wasn't like help the guy or just move on because you don't want to get unlucky.
No,
because when you make those 2 the options, you're almost drawn to help the guy because the other one just seemed boring. Whereas that I can see a world where we do pick murder him because it's more of an action. There's going to be a consequence or an outcome for it, and it could be good, could be bad, but you don't know. So yeah, again, very clever in an A/B type style decision that actually makes people, I guess, want to choose one or choose one or both of the options. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very excited to see him come back.
All right, scenario 4, Crypt of the Damned. So the scenario is complete when all enemies in it are dead. At the end of the round, we read a thing. We had basically 4 tiles making up a starting room, a corridor, which then branches out into 2 final rooms, one being a large chamber and one being a small room. The monsters in this scenario we had were Cultists, Living Bones, Bandit Archers, and Wind Demons, which was an interesting combination. The special rules for this scenario was in one particular room, when it is revealed, all enemies or all characters and character summons on that tile have disadvantage. But it's not revealed at the start. It requires the person who is setting it up to read that out when it happens. Roll call, we had Phil on the level 3 Silent Knife, so level 3 at this one. Gaz level 2, hopefully he levels up this session, at the Mind Thief, and Deddy on the level 3 Tinkerer. Hopefully he also levels up because he's also quite close. We did the scenario on +1, so scenario level 3. How it went. Boom, right from the get-go. The archers set on shooting Deddy the Tinkerer, whilst the elite Skellies are set on doing the same, but with attack 3s, hitting the same target 3 times. Deddy has 11 health. This isn't good for Deddy. Brave Phil, the Silent Knife, advises Deddy he will tank all 3 hits for him. Deddy is satisfied with this arrangement. The archers start blasting at Deddy with attack 2s, which the first is a +0. Now, you know I only read out individual monster AMD flips for a reason. The second one, he cleverly decides to use his leather armor to reduce the amount he'll take for the round. So far, he's contemplating setting the armor on fire, as it hasn't really been worth the money he spent on it. The second archer fires and lands a +2 and a +1. This just might be the worst armor I've ever bought on any character in the Haven series, ever. And I've used this armor on other characters before. Deddy almost kills one of the elite Skellies with 2 traps and a pull, and Phil jumps in to finish it off and places himself between the Deddy and the other elite Skelly, who's about to hit him 3 times. Phil chooses to not use the not armor he's not wearing, and the Skelly proceeds to do 3 attack 3s, resulting in 2 -1s and the fucking Null. This results in a large mocking laugh from Silent Phil, the first of many. Gaz with 1Z, aka the Mind Thief, does mind control shenanigans, and the party quickly makes short work of the first room. Phil opens the door into the corridor, where we just know there will be cultists out the back getting ready to give birth to Skellies. And in all the knowing that's going on, Deddy sets the map slightly wrong, just to show how much he knew what was going to happen. Did you know about that?
I did read that was incorrect.
Yeah, one of the cultists was meant to be up near the door. Yeah, sorry about that. The archers cock their bows. Is that the saying? And Phil starts 2-button memeing as to going in whilst invisible or retreating. Deddy tells him to go in, and with clever placement, he sets it up so only a normal archer will hit Deddy. And as she fires her shot, Deddy laughs as he absorbs her arrow into his ring. Meanwhile, the cultists knew that Deddy knew that they were coming, so they switched to the latest meta combo they recently discovered in safeguarding themselves first, so they can summon without stunning themselves. Well played. Deddy summons Dwarf 74 in front of the closest archer and pleads with Dwarf to tank, but tank well. Take shots, but not really hard ones for a change. Gaz slices through the archer in the doorway, clearing a path, pops invisible, and stands next to Phil, who's also invisible. Dwarf starts talking about how heavy the snow is falling, and thwack! He cops an attack 3, which pulls the +2, and now Deddy's contemplating setting Dwarf on fire, as he feels it's not really been worth the stamina he's invested. But a second arrow is fired at Dwarf, and it misses. Probably because it hit Deddy in the head somewhere. A fatality is heard, a bow was cranked, and Gaz, who had our community in his ear about how to make use of controlled targets, decides to practice on the Living Bones, who have innate additional targets to their attacks. He channels the force into a skeleton, who slowly turns around to face its masters, 2 cultists, looking shocked at the betrayal of their creation. With Gaz in the mind of the skeleton, it lifts its sword and brings it down on a cultist, only to completely miss, much to no one's surprise. Quickly accepting the less than fortunate outcome, he commands it to attack the other cultist, and it too flinches as it accepts the skeleton blade. But no, a curse. He missed again. A curse. A curse that Gaz put in their deck. The cultists begin summoning more living bones, but with a sudden change of plans and an apology to Dwarf, the Tinkerer charges in and stuns them both before they can reinforce, and together the Silent Knife Tinkerer and Sad Panda Mind Thief cut down the remaining corridor, with the exception of 1 skeleton on 2 HP, which no one wants to kill for some reason, only for the group to convince Phil to finish it off, so he conveniently misses it, ending his miss streak. How's that for defiance? The party barge through the wooden door leading to the large chamber, totally ignoring the sign out front saying all heroes must perform slightly shitter in this room, and are met with wind demons. You know what's worse than this group trying to kill skeletons with 1 shield? Wind demons with 2. Accompanying the wind demons are 2 more cultists who immediately start summoning living bones, and the groups groan as they wonder who the fuck invited them. Somehow the group made it work, but not without a Tinker or Hail Mary play that became a Fail Mary play, as he copped an absolute dicking, and in the final few rounds, he lands a teleportation pad and unloots the chests, and then rip Daddy. Gaz and Phil slowly kill off the remaining monsters, but it takes longer than usual. Once they're informed by the staff on the rules of hitting shitter. They clear the room eventually and head for the final, smaller room, where Phil, who headed there first, has a difficult choice of winning the scenario or getting his own rod. As a tired and wounded Gaz approaches the final door, he hears an excited voice yell, "Gaz, look what I found!" And as he turns a corner, he spots a final cultist accompanied by 2 earth demons and the silent knife in the back of the room trying to work out how to get his rod working. The cultist, who knows his rotation, immediately begins summoning, and a normal living bones is added to the fray. Phil kills the cultist, but is cut down by the remaining monsters, and it is up to Gaz now to finish the scenario for the team. He forces the first skeleton, well, the only skeleton really, to walk into the trap that may or may not have been useful for one of the earth demons, and he whispers out loud to his dead companions whether earth demons can heal. Yes, Gaz, apparently they can. It's one of their 8 cards, and they might pull it twice. Gaz, with his final few moments, manages to outplay the elite earth demon, not that he should go around boasting about that, and it's a 1-on-1. Normal earth demon versus mind thief. Now, with 2 turns left and no items, so it's like, it's not a fair fight. Gaz sets up a huge perverse edge turn by stacking conditions, but because he went before the Earth Demon, they just fall off, and it comes down to 1 amD card flip. The scenario all falls on a card flip from Gaz. Oh, and it needs to be a crit too. This was probably one of the most epic edge of seat moments. And he draws a +0, which, let's be honest, is actually a huge achievement. The party lay in a heap, exhausted, stunned, but very, very proud of their Bind Thief, who gave it his all. And as a wise wind once said, we should have killed the Quattrel. Thoughts on scenario 4, Gaz?
It was a lot of fun. I think it's how to do a kill-all scenario with a slight twist and keep it interesting to the end. So you have the movement puzzle, you have the fact that the monsters can all heal becomes challenging, and then the monster choice in general is interesting for a kill-all. And so it really becomes more of an attrition fight than I think some scenarios that are in kill-alls can be. Some of them can be like...
Can demons heal? Because I don't know if we saw it. Did we see that?
Maybe they can't heal. I'm not sure.
I know bandit archers can't, but...
Yeah, so it's just the cultists and the skeletons that can heal. Oh, and the earth demons. Yeah. So, but I mean, it just kind of felt cool in that it was an attrition thing. There was puzzles to solve about how we get around. There was a really it didn't end up mattering in the end, but there was, because we had to kill the skeletons in the disadvantage room. But the play that you did with the teleportation pad would have to get us back over to that other room was really clever. So it was another cool use of that card from a just pure movement perspective. I think it was fun to play, even though we lost, which sucked. But yeah, I don't know. It had a bit of everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think on paper, it's an easy scenario, right? On paper, it's a kill-all. And you've got one room, and this is what I mean. The special rules, it's special rules light. They're there to spice it up a little bit. And it's funny how something so simple makes it quite challenging. In that, we have disadvantage. You've got the threat of the cultists, which we're going to cover later in the Monster Spotlight, because they've had a revamp, and we didn't really know all their tricks. Well, I know very little. I know that they blow up, and I know that they summon living bones, but I can't really remember, and I'm starting to see that flesh out now of what they can get up to, and they're incredibly dangerous. And like I said, we'll jump into that. But yeah, from a kill-all with a minor slight special rule, it was incredibly challenging, and I loved that. I think that's fantastic. I think it does come down to scenario design from both the layout and also the monster choices and where they're situated. And I think, yeah, that second room corridor was pivotal. But also, this is where the RNG factor comes in. If those cultists don't immediately start summoning and doing their BS, they start playing some of their move attack cards. It's not that it becomes less challenging, but it's less scary. It's less swingy, I think, is ultimately as something like that.
Yeah, that's it. So, but yeah, I think it's and we'll talk about this when we look at the skeletons. But I feel like the shambling bones, I think they're called.
No, living bones.
Living bones. They're living, not shambling. They're a really interesting monster, and they're like almost a good skill check, damage check, whatever you want to use for, like, especially for a low level party, because they just present so many challenges from both like positioning, pierce, the healing piece, like this, and like we talk about that, but them being summonable, right? Or like them, adds this extra layer of like urgency, which again, sometimes I think Gloomhaven first edition didn't really have that, and a lot of the times it was open doorway fight through, right? Which was fine because it was the game. And then Frosthaven moved drastically away from that with this urgency usually created, like, if you don't do this right now, you're gonna lose, or hey, we're just throwing you in this room now, deal with it. There's a million monsters and unlimited spawn. So and that's obviously the extreme version of it. Whereas this seemed to be a bit more of a balance of like, you have the option of taking your time, but as you take your time, it's going to get slightly harder. So there are like ebbs and flows, or like waves of where there is priority. So opening that second room, the corridor room, there's like high priority, kill the cultists. But once the cultists are dead, the priority, or the urgency, sorry, probably a better word, dies down a bit. Same with that, the big disadvantage room. Like, having the cultists run around is really bad, but once they're dead, you can kind of not take your time, but you don't, there's not you're going to get punched, but it's not going to get increasingly harder the longer you leave it. And I think that's really clever for how the scenario flows. And regardless of whether they do summon or not is irrelevant, because it's a potential.
Yeah.
So the urgency is there while they exist, because they could draw the summon.
Correct.
And if the urgency's there and you choose to address it, then you're going to go kill them. So it doesn't matter whether they summoned or not. They took your focus away.
Yeah.
And I think that's really clever. And obviously, that's not by accident. Obviously, a lot of thought's gone into that. So yeah, heads up to the designers for putting that equation together.
Question for our situation and our party: is shield our biggest weakness?
Yeah, it sucks for us. And I said that to Phil at the start of the scenario when I looked at it and we're like, all right, we've got living bones and we've got wind demons that have 2 shield. What pierce have we got? And he maybe has 1 card with pierce on it, I think. I have none. I don't think you have any.
From very vague memory, he's got a persistent that I think all his range attacks at +1 pierce or something like that on it.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. But yeah, we don't have good access to pierce.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think we've actually run into this issue in a very, very long time. And I'm talking about throughout Crimson Scales and even Frosthaven, we sort of always seem to have someone who could deal with pure damage, or someone who had a lot of pierce or retaliate or something like that. We had ways of dealing with shield. I actually feel like, holy crap, what do we actually have to deal with shield? Like, I remember at one point in that second room with the wind demons, like, I've got trap options, which is great, but wind demons for flying. And it's just like, oh, okay, cool. That's, that option gone. It was great for the living bones, but, even that's gone. So it's like, what do we do? We've got endless amounts of poison. That mitigates it to a degree. But yeah, it's just, it feels weird not having access to just, that's okay, I've got this burn that I can just, spend to deal with 2 shield.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I like that level of challenge that it brings. I'd be wary that if we looked at a scenario that had any more monsters than like maybe 2 out of those that have shield or higher shield, so anything that has 2 or 3 consistently.
If there's a still automaton, right? If there's a still automaton, which is a Frosthaven monster, right? In here at all, we're screwed.
Well, even flame demons, I'm pretty sure, and higher level living spirits have like 3 to 4 shields. So, we're gonna have to get creative with it. And honestly, with our party makeup, if we went into a scenario that had flame demons in it and maybe skeletons and something and wind demons, we would actually have to consider not doing that scenario because it's not that it would be too hard, but we have to work out, well, what is our actual plan going into this before we even start it? Because if we don't, we're just probably going to lose from not being able to kill stuff. I mean, I got a couple of, like, flame demons have retaliate and blah blah blah. So there's ways around it of like I can control monsters to hit them and etc. But at the end of the day, they're like niche, kind of like they're not go-to options, right? They're like, oh, if the stars align, I can probably make this happen. So yeah, it's a good challenge to have, and I like that it's in it because we have talked before about shields not really meaning anything when you've got a lot of access to pierce and a lot of access to pure damage.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, it's really irrelevant.
Yeah. We've got a lot of wound. I think Phil's got obviously open wounds, and I've got a flamethrower or something like that. Like we've got some wound options, but also like therefore we're relying on like a 2 health 5 shield. I mean, that's an example, like a flame thingy, a flame demon, I don't know, 3 or 4 shield, maybe 2 health or something like that. We're still relying on 2 rounds worth of them having free reign to do whatever they want in order for that thing to tick down. That's provided there's no dickhead cultists in the back going, hey, have a shield. Oh, while you're at it, have a safeguard, because that's me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And that's what makes the skeletons so good is that they negate that because they've got their heal card.
Yeah.
So you can't really whittle them because the shield just makes your attacks inefficient. And then there's always the chance they pull their 2 shield and heal 1, which then negates a bunch of stuff. You can't just chuck a wound on them and let them die because again, that's just going to get cleansed off. So it becomes for such a, what I'll say is basic early monster, there is a lot of strategy. Like they counter a lot of things, which I think make them really, really interesting to have in the scenarios.
All right. How does hypothetical NPC from Frosthaven go in there?
I think he's okay because I think the first room, as long as we tank the hits, he's probably doing all right.
I actually agree with you. I actually think he's not too bad in here for some reason.
I think anything that we can get ahead of him, and there isn't like a weird threat coming that like we can control where he's going, is fine. And this is one where we could control the pace of it. We could get ahead of him, and we could keep him mostly out of harm.
Well,
the only danger really is that he decides to just run through a trap because he's like, this is the best path.
Yeah, and hopefully that's not the case. Yeah, there's a world where this is the scenario where, all things considered, I mean, it gives me another heal target, right? If he's there, we win that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, always the difference in this one, right? Yeah, a couple of hits in, when Phil misses that skeleton, he says, "Don't worry, I'll have a turn and I'll kill him." Like, yeah. There's a world where Ormy saves the day here.
That's so weird. Any updates in the amDirt Diaries? I've got a quick thing here where I probably need to start focusing on damage, and I think that it feels weird seeing, not weird, but I'm seeing you guys obviously, doing damage and killing targets, and a part of me wants to be able to contribute to that. And a lot of the times, most of my base attacks, and because I haven't done any AMD cleansing, it's like I can't really feel like I can contribute. Now I can via burns, yes, but then I find I'm also in a situation where a lot of these burns, whether it be dwarf, whether it be potent potables, whether it be the stun, the AoE stun, whether it be the teleportation pad, whether it be just all of these burns are also used for utility, right? So I'm in this weird headspace of I want to keep doing those things, another burn, get all your cards back, right? Versus shooting, with a crankbow, which I also did, or doing, one of my 2 triangles, etc., etc. It's finding a bit of a balance, and I'm finding that lately you guys are getting really good at mitigating the damage. I don't know whether it's through lucky AMD because I'm copying all of the high hits, but I'm finding that a lot of times I'm running around with a lot of heal cards and not enough attack cards now. And there was that crucial round where I wanted to do a big heal with the potent potables to heal Dwarf back up, and I ended up swapping it around to doing the stun to stop the summoning. But I am finding that I am probably overly bringing heal cards now, as weird as that sounds, and need to find a bit of a balance, but I don't know whether or not that's going to be worth it until at least I start cleansing the AMD a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I suppose like you're coming at it from a your enjoyment perspective and what you feel like you can and can't do. Whereas I'm on the other side of it where I'm seeing the impact you're having with all of those things, and I think that you've got the balance pretty right. But like again, we've talked about throwing out a stun or throwing out a heal. Even that stuff doesn't feel fun. Like, even
Yeah.
even dwarf, right? It doesn't get to attack, so it's a summon that once you have played the card, you get to move the AI monster movement, but it doesn't do anything. And I know you know the value of it, but it doesn't feel fun. So
I think it's more that bit where Phil wanted to open the door and phase in to get the chest from the first room, and we had that skelly on 2 health, and it was like, can you deal with it? And I'm like, yeah, hang on, let me check. Top heal, top heal. No, I can't. Even if I wanted to, and I even said that, I was like, I can hit it with a base attack too, but it's got a shield, right? I don't know, and that's the part that feels bad, is that I didn't really have that option. The top of Potent Potables is attack 3 with Muddle, but I already used that. So I do have a couple of things in there, but I just didn't have them accessible because I was doing other things. And I think that's the balance that, from a role point of view, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I actually am. I just probably, this is why we do the amDirt Diaries, is what we're learning along the way when we're playing a particular character, and any changes that we're doing or any challenges that we're facing, as a sort of open forum,
yeah.
and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, like that's it. You're going to keep tinkering with it, right? So,
Oh, nice.
uh, yeah, and I think every scenario is also going to throw up different situations. Like the types of monsters we had in this were a bit easier to mitigate damage because we can avoid skeletons for the most part. It's just the archers, but we drop them pretty quickly. And in fact, the two main spikes of damage were when the archers were alive and when the wind demons were alive.
Yeah.
Right. But once those were controlled or eliminated, the cultists, the skeletons, and then the earth demons in the end really aren't that big a challenge from a damage output perspective.
Yes.
Because with the skeletons, the big thing is them hitting 2 or 3 targets. So that just becomes a movement thing. So yeah, I agree. And then maybe we're going to go into a scenario that has a lot more random chip damage. Like anything with retaliate is really
Swarmy.
going to mess our party up.
Yeah.
Where we're going to need like probably more healing because in order to output our damage, we're going to take damage. So it is gonna change. Yeah.
Mm.
So.
Mind Thief. I've got one note here if you don't have anything, but go for it.
Oh, look, the fact that I didn't level makes me really sad because I was like 1 XP off hitting level 3, which sucks. Especially because someone pointed out there was an XP that I could have gotten during it if you consumed the ice to kill the monster, and then it would have. I can't just claim it because it's something I would have had to do. But it's annoying.
Oh, everyone's
That
just
I missed
like,
that one.
just take it, right?
I
Why are you so
can't. I
stubborn,
can't.
guys?
I can't. So, but what I tried with this one is I didn't bring the rats, which meant I think I talked about this last week. I didn't bring the rat support augment card, uh, and it was interesting. I think I didn't do as much swapping between the augments as I needed to, clearly by my low XP. But I think in the end, did get a bit better feel for how I can use them to stay out of range. Especially the one that lets me attack at 2 hexes away. There was in that middle corridor that was getting very chunky because like Phil was there, Dwarf was there, and there was things. So there was actually a couple of turns where I was able to throw attacks out at range too, and it was fine. Like it meant that I was actually able to contribute rather than having to do something reckless like jump over to the other side of everything
Mm.
and kind of then be in this awkward situation where now I have to do attacks, but also have to make sure I go invis.
Mm.
Right. This meant I could just kind of stand there and keep doing attacks for a round or two. And it was pretty effective. So yeah, all in all, I like the style. And I think the only thing that I'm lacking is a bit of movement because by dropping the rat augment, I think that's a move card. I think it's a move forward jump as well. So I think it's quite good. Either
Yeah.
that, and I know the rats is a move 4 on the bottom as well. So there's like basically 2 of my move forward cards are gone. So I
Yeah.
just have to be a bit more clever with the scenario and my movement.
Okay. You're well set off for Slowpoke apparently. If you were to get that as a battle goal.
Well, I'm
Um.
not because I've got a bunch of move 3s. I can't use them. But yeah,
True.
anyway.
I was going to say very quickly, I was actually chatting to Phil about it last night about, oh, it was rough, that we didn't complete that, etc. And we were talking about the RNG aspect of it and how much we love it. And, you whiffed that many times, right? But it's amazing how, you go from a smaller player count, and we did talk about playing it at 2 players, how it's really difficult and how the game is a completely different game. It's much harder because of action economy. You miss one time. It's like every time you miss, it keeps something up. So if you don't kill something or do damage, that's one extra round that we then have to, as a collective group, deal with, that threat. And when you're doing it over and over again, right, it is unlucky. But it's amazing how much of a difficulty spike or a tempo change it can drastically have on the actual scenario. And my point here was like, when are you getting the monster control your AMD perk, Gaz? Because like, not that it maybe makes a huge difference, but I don't, then, because you literally put the curse in their deck, which then you got to draw, which was really, like, Phil and I can't put curses in their decks. So it was fun seeing that.
Yeah, I know. And like, I think I said I was going to get the monster AMD one once I got some more AMD, like better AMD, because I think I've taken out 2 -1s and I've added in a rolling +1. So I've slightly changed it. And maybe I do need to use that, get that perk sooner. So if I bless, there's also the chance that I can pull those. So it might be something that I can look at. Like, I mean, if I'd leveled, then maybe I could look at it, but now I have to wait longer. But yeah, I was trying to, again, like thin out or make my modified deck a bit better. I mean, I know I'm the only one that got curses in there, but I'm pretty sure the stats on that were I pulled the miss, and I think it was like there was 21 cards in the monster AMD. Two
Something
of
like
them were curses, so the chances weren't good, right? But I managed to pull it, so I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I'll get it soon. It's not an option at the moment, but yeah.
All right, we have about 10 minutes left. Let's smash through our monster spotlight. So monster spotlight at the moment is where we kind of just delve a little bit deeper into a monster and look at some of their ability cards. Now, this is something Gaz and I don't do normally, and going into a scenario, we don't sit there and go, okay, let's look at the cards and what we have to go up against. We just kind of like the idea of learning as we go and trying to see what they can do. And a lot of the times we go, oh, that's right, they can do that, right? As that pops up. But I wanted to have a look into the Cultists from 1st edition to 2nd edition, because there are some of the cards that were like, they're doing it again. They're doing that again. Do they not have any other cards in their deck? There are 4 cards in 2nd edition. They only have 4. They've got 2 copies of each. So I didn't know that going into this, although I didn't know with 1st edition. Now, for comparison, 1st edition, they've got 5 cards. 3 of them, right, 2. They've got 2 copies of 3 of their cards. And then the remaining 2 are just slightly different. They're different cards. So, for example, they've got 2 summoning cards. That's their reset card. They both go at 63. It's always been that way. Yep.
I was going to say, is this, sorry, you're talking about the old version or the new version?
Both versions.
Oh, okay. All right.
Both versions have the summoning ritual. It's just now with 2nd edition, they've added the stun, the self-stun.
Yep.
Okay. So it feels like that's all they do. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think I've got stats here. Yeah, I do. I quickly went and got some stats. Anyway, the other cards they've got the move and heal with safeguard. Okay, they didn't have that before. They did have 1 card, which in 1st edition, which was a move and a heal. All right, so that's new. They've got 2 of those now. That's why it felt like there was a lot more of that happening. They've also got the card that is the move and death. I call it death blow. It's the one where when they die, they blow up. All right, we saw that a couple of times already as well. There is 1 extra card in there that we only saw like once, and that was the move to move to attack and then heal depending on how much damage you did.
That's right.
Okay?
Yep.
We rarely saw that. And that would have been a great card for them to spam, because their attack is really low base-wise. So it's a high chance it gets mitigated and they heal for next to nothing. But no, of course, they're pulling out more the others. And their timings of all of those card options were always on point, whether it be a cultist is on 1 health and he pulls the death blow card, or we open the door and the first thing they do is either safeguard themselves or summon, or one after the other. We saw 13 cultist ability cards in that scenario.
Mm.
So we should see an even spread over the 4 types of card options.
Well, yes and no, because they're
Kind of.
refreshed, but
Yes,
sure.
because of the
Yeah,
reset.
yeah.
Yes, I don't know, math. So 4 of those cards of the 13 were the safeguard heals.
Okay.
4 of them were death blows,
Okay.
and 4 of them were summons.
Okay.
So only one of them was the move attack heal.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, it does. But at the same time, it feels like that, like I said, on paper, that looks like the easiest one to deal with.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the easier, less impactful card that doesn't change much stuff. But I suppose 3 out of their 4 cards are quite annoying. We're going to see annoying cards from them all the time, right?
Yes. Yes. So as a whole, Cultists have had a couple of changes. I like them, although, like I said, it's hard for me to compare because I haven't really played First Edition in a long time. But they are elevating rapidly up a monster tier list for me in terms of priority. And I didn't think that was, yeah, sure, Cultist Summon, big whoop. But our experiences playing with them in quite a few of these early scenarios, they're pretty scary. And like that safeguard heal is really becoming a lot more impactful. And now I get it when people are like, safeguard is a new condition, etc. Wait a second, this doesn't sound like really it's really impactful for us, but from a monster point of view, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but Safeguard feels like Impair did when we first saw it. As in, we're like in Frosthaven, we're like, Impair, whatever. But then when it happens, you're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
Right? And we're seeing that. And I think the thing that makes the cultists elevate, like that skill set they've got, is that that's usually, or it has been so far, around the Living Bones. Like healing something that has shield is just even more annoying for the reasons we talked about before, and we'll talk about Living Bones in a sec. So, yeah, I agree. I think that the changes are good. I like the stun on.
Just one very quick thing I forgot to mention. In their old deck in First Edition, 2 of their cards are really nothing special. They just move attacks.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think as a centerpiece, I don't mind them having more impactful cards, especially considering they're potentially stunning themselves. But that's it. I love that the design side of things is that they do say they safeguard themselves. And again, now there's that urgency because there was already urgency that they might draw the summon, but now there's urgency of like, if we got to get that safeguard off them so that they're at least stunning themselves.
Yeah.
If they're going to get the summon off, at least make sure that they don't just get to have another turn the next turn and do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So I do. I like that kind of escalation because it's again, it's just player agency. It's like, well, you get to make your decisions. Like, yeah, they can draw the summon card again and again and again. But if they're doing that, they're only doing it every other turn. And if you end up with 3 Living Bones out, well, that's on you.
Yep.
Right.
No, agreed.
So yeah, it's good.
No, very good. Living Bones. So would it surprise you to know that from my quick putting this together before we actually jumped on and recorded there, that there's been no changes at all to Living Bones?
Yeah, I thought maybe they do slight tweaks, but
I can't see. I'm pretty sure they're exactly the same. There might have been an initiative difference on one of their cards, maybe from another quick scan, but that shield 1, heal 2, right, that they do, they've only got 1 copy of that. The other reset card is the, I think, move attack self heal. In the scenario that we actually did, they, I think, pulled that, 4 or 5 times in total as their reset of choice. They preferred it over the other. It was also going at initiative 12, which isn't a massive deal. I mean, it's fast, but it's not a massive deal considering you and Phil are playing 2 of the, with faster options. I don't know how many. But it was, the RNG was insane. At least the first 3 rounds, they put the mincemeat one, and I'm calling it mincemeat because it's literally hit the 1 target over and over again. They've only got 1 copy of that card in their deck, right? So they pull that, and it's scary. They pulled that, and then they had 2 consecutive rounds of Shield 2, Heal 2. And that's in the first 3 rounds. So, look, I don't know whether or not it's GLOOMHAVEN and it's been coded that they pull their reset card more often in general, like monsters, or if that's something we have to deal with. But yeah, it's interesting that it's a testament to the design of Living Bones right from the get-go, that it's incredibly well-balanced, well put together, generic soldier monster in the Haven series. and that it doesn't require much tweaks because it's basically perfect.
Yeah. No, I agree. 100% agree. That would be the message that I would see coming through there, is that each monster has a role, and then it has to have enough of a role to be usable in multiple scenarios, right? Because they haven't got like 100 monsters that they can just put unique ones in. So you've got to make sure something's flexible to be able to do something. And the Living Bones, really does feel like it fills multiple roles. And always, and I said this before with the multi-target thing, I think there's not a lot of monsters that make you consider your movement as much and placement of your party outside of like, well, I just got to be out of range of it, right? Like a range thing could try to outrange them, or a melee thing, I've just got to try to move faster than them. But these actually make you go, well, we're going to get hit, but if we stand next to each other or near each other, we're going to get hit more. And I love that it creates a little puzzle from that. Like, and that's again a limitation to what you can do. So it's another choice. Yep. So I think it's really clever that they have that in.
Yeah, I do love that their innate attack multiple people is built into the character, and Frosthaven has also adapted that with, I think it was the sentry turrets thing, because they don't shoot overly hard, although they've got a couple of hard hitting ones, but they target 4. It's innate in them, like target 3 or 4. But then they've got that one card where target one person with all of the attacks, like you said, and it's like, you're dancing around the movement aspect of them, but you run the risk of that one card coming up and then just going, ooh, how am I going to deal with this, right?
Yeah, so.
All right. We will close it out there. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. Do we repeat this scenario? Do we go somewhere else? I'm not too sure how we're dealing with that. I think we're going to put a poll up in our Discord. I think by the time this episode comes out, that will still be running and we might know the result by then. But this won't be a YouTube poll. This will be a Discord poll just to keep it nice and clean and see what the people say.
Yeah, it sounds good. No, I think there's pros and cons for both sides of it. So it'd be interesting to discuss. I'm
surprised at the amount of people who are saying, hey, we'd like to see you repeat it, which kind of surprised me actually. Yeah, and I mean, I think the discussion as well for those potentially people who haven't seen the Discord chat or been in your living room when we recorded, right? Yeah. Is that we always intend on doing this again at some point. Yeah. But the idea is that we might move on because we've got 3 other scenarios we can choose. We might go and do another one, or if not more, go do another one or another path, or go down that line and then come back to this one either potentially in 2 or 3 weeks or later on, or potentially even do it when we have a bigger day where we can play a couple of scenarios and we just don't record the recording for this one. Yeah. But yeah, these are all the options we're playing with. But the idea was always to come back and do it. It's just whether to do it straight away now or to kind of move on and experience something else, see more of the game. So. Yep. We'll work at that soon. Thank you again for tuning in. I've been your host, Eddie. I'll be joined again by Gaz. And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, you just can't use the Monster AMD because it's just as terrible as my AMD.